A continent of secrets lies buried beneath the soil of the Americas. Long before European ships ever appeared on the horizon, this land was home to sprawling cities, ingenious engineers, and cultures whose stories were nearly erased. We are about to journey into the heart of pre-Columbian America, uncovering the truth behind abandoned metropolises and artifacts that defy easy explanation. You will discover how entire civilizations rose to staggering heights only to vanish, leaving behind puzzles that modern science is still struggling to solve. How did a people move stones heavier than elephants without wheels? Why would a society create giant drawings only visible from the sky? By the end of this exploration, you will see human history in a completely new light. What forgotten story from the ancient world most captures your imagination? The great stone pyramids of the Maya did not simply fall silent overnight. Imagine walking through the grand plazas of Tikal at the height of its power, a city alive with tens of thousands of people. The air hums with the sounds of commerce and ceremony. Now fast forward just a few generations, those same plazas are empty, reclaimed by the relentless jungle. The ruling dynasties have vanished, their grand construction projects halted mid-stride. This was the Maya collapse, a breathtaking unraveling that saw the heart of their civilization in the southern lowlands simply cease to function around the 9th century. It was not an extinction of the Maya people, but a catastrophic failure of their political and social order. What could cause such a sophisticated society to come apart so completely? One of the most compelling suspects is a profound and prolonged drought. Scientists studying sediment cores from nearby lakes have found startling evidence. These natural archives reveal that the region experienced some of the driest centuries in thousands of years, coinciding perfectly with the collapse. For a civilization utterly dependent on seasonal rains to fill their reservoirs and water their crops, a series of failed rainy seasons would have been catastrophic. The reservoirs would have dried up, the maize fields would have withered, and the social contract between the people and their divine kings would have shattered. A ruler who could no longer intercede with the gods for rain was a ruler without power. Yet, was it really just the weather? The evidence on the ground suggests a more complex tragedy. In the final years of cities like Palenque, we see a frantic rush to build fortifications. Monumental sculptures, once celebrating kings, are violently defaced. The archaeological record reveals a sharp increase in warfare, not just between rival cities, but seemingly from within. It paints a picture of a society tearing itself apart. Perhaps a combination of environmental stress and overpopulation pushed competing city-states into constant, draining conflict. The resources needed to wage war could no longer be spared for building temples or sustaining the populace. The system became a feedback loop of violence and scarcity. So, which was it? Drought, war, political revolt, or all of the above? The truth is that no single theory holds all the answers. A devastating drought would have intensified the struggle for dwindling resources, making warfare more likely. Constant warfare, in turn, would have made it impossible to manage the land effectively or respond to the changing climate. The collapse was likely a perfect storm where multiple failures reinforced each other. This is what makes the Maya collapse such an enduring historical mystery. It serves as a powerful reminder that even the most brilliant and established civilizations are not immune to the complex interplay of environment, politics, and human nature. The silence of their abandoned cities asks us a difficult question. How many different ways can a world end? Far to the south, another civilization left behind a mystery etched into the very skin of the earth. Scattered across the high, arid plains of Peru are the Nazca Lines, an immense gallery of geoglyphs so vast they can only be fully comprehended from the sky. These are not small carvings, they are sprawling designs, some stretching over 1,000 feet across the desert floor. There are precise geometric shapes, immense trapezoids and triangles that look like ancient runways. And then there are the living forms, a menagerie of colossal creatures, including a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey with an intricately coiled tail, and even a humanoid figure often called the astronaut. The Nazca people created these wonders between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years of the Common Era, a period of over 1,000 years. They did this not by piling up stones, but by the opposite method. They removed the top layer of dark, sun-baked pebbles to reveal the lighter-colored sand beneath, creating stark, contrasting lines that have endured for millennia in one of the driest places on Earth. The sheer scale of this undertaking is staggering. How did they achieve such precision for figures they could never see in their entirety? And more importantly, why would a culture invest such monumental effort into art that was, for them, fundamentally invisible? The leading theories attempt to answer this by stepping into the Nazca worldview. One prominent idea suggests the lines functioned as a giant astronomical calendar. Certain lines may have pointed to the rising or setting sun on solstices, or to key stars and constellations, helping to mark the seasons crucial for planting and religious ceremonies. Another compelling theory sees the geoglyphs as sacred pathways. Perhaps these lines were walked during important rituals, a form of spiritual pilgrimage where the act of moving along the giant drawing connected the participant with the symbol it represented, like walking the form of a condor to invoke its power. The most widely accepted explanation, however, ties directly to the most precious resource in the desert, water. Many of the lines are found near riverbeds and ancient aqueducts. It is thought they could have been a form of offering to the gods, a desperate and beautiful plea for life-giving rain. By creating these massive depictions of fertile creatures like monkeys and hummingbirds, the Nazca may have been performing a sympathetic ritual, drawing the essence of water and life from the spiritual realm into their own parched world. Of course, such an inexplicable feat has also spawned more speculative ideas, most famously the notion of extraterrestrial involvement. Proponents of these fringe theories ask how a primitive culture could create such precise, large-scale designs without the ability to fly, suggesting ancient astronauts or alien landing strips. Yet archaeologists have demonstrated simple, elegant methods the Nazca could have used. With basic surveying techniques involving stakes and ropes, they could have scaled up a small model into a giant desert masterpiece, one manageable section at a time. The alien theory, while captivating, often overlooks the ingenuity of the people themselves. The true mystery is not how they did it, but why they committed to a project whose full glory would only be revealed to the world over 1,000 years later with the invention of flight. These lines are not a message for us or for visitors from another star. They are a profound testament to human faith, a civilization's monumental effort to communicate with forces far greater than themselves, written in a language of symbols on the grandest possible canvas. Deep in the swampy heartlands of what is now Mexico, the Olmec civilization laid the foundation for all that would follow in Mesoamerica. This was the culture that pioneered the earliest writing, the first complex calendar systems, and the blueprint for the ceremonial city. And their most iconic legacy is a series of stone giants, 17 colossal heads carved from solid basalt. Each one is a monument of staggering presence, with some weighing over 20 tons, the equivalent of 2 full-grown elephants. These heads were discovered buried or half-submerged in the earth, their stoic faces gazing out from the past as if waiting to be found. The sheer logistics of their creation boggle the mind. The Olmec quarried these gigantic boulders from the Tuxtla Mountains, then transported them over 50 miles through treacherous rivers and swamps, all without the wheel, without pack animals, and without metal tools. The effort must have been Herculean, requiring the coordinated labor of hundreds, if not thousands, of people for a single head. This monumental undertaking forces us to ask a fundamental question. Who were these figures so important that a society would dedicate such immense resources to immortalize them? The most widely accepted theory is that they portray powerful Olmec rulers. Their distinct headgear, which looks like protective helmets, could signify their status as ball players, linking them to the sacred Mesoamerican ball game, a contest often associated with myths of creation and the underworld. Yet their unique, individualized features suggest they are portraits of specific, powerful individuals, perhaps deified after death. This is where the mystery deepens. The faces on these heads are remarkably lifelike, with broad noses, full lips, and wide cheeks, features that are unmistakably robust and realistic. Their distinct appearance has, for some, fueled speculation about contact with peoples from across the oceans long before Columbus. Could these faces be evidence of ancient African or other transoceanic travelers? Mainstream archaeology, however, points to a different conclusion. These features are consistent with artistic styles found throughout Olmec sculpture, from jade figurines to ceramic vessels. They represent an indigenous artistic tradition, a conscious choice to depict human diversity and authority in a specific, powerful way. The debate itself reveals a fascinating tension in how we view the ancient past. Are we looking for connections across the globe, or should we be marveling at the unique and independent genius that flourished right here? The Olmec heads do not give us easy answers. They simply stare back at us, their expressions unreadable, their identities a secret they have kept for 3,000 years. They are the silent founding fathers of an American world, a reminder that true origins are often the most profound mystery of all. Hidden beneath a grassy hill in central Mexico lies the largest pyramid ever built by human hands. The Great Pyramid of Colula is not a single structure but a vast, layered puzzle. Over many centuries, generations of people enlarged and encased earlier versions, creating a colossal sacred mountain dedicated to the feathered serpent god, Quetzalcoatl. Its final form was a sprawling complex of temples and altars, a religious center so immense its volume is nearly twice that of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yet today, it resembles a natural landscape crowned by a Spanish colonial church. How does an entire pyramid vanish into the earth? The answer is not a sudden cataclysm, but a deliberate, profound act of transformation. When Spanish forces arrived in the 16th century, they found the temple complex already overgrown and largely abandoned by its original builders. The local population had not forgotten its sacred nature, but the great ceremonial center had fallen out of use centuries before. The Spaniards, seeing only a large hill, built the Church of Our Lady of the Remedies right on its summit, literally placing the symbol of their new faith atop the old. This act created a powerful visual metaphor for conquest, but it also preserved the pyramid beneath, protecting it from systematic destruction. So why was this monumental heart of worship abandoned in the first place? The city of Colula was a thriving metropolis, a vital pilgrimage site for devotees of Quetzalcoatl. Archaeologists believe that around the 7th or 8th century, the city saw a significant shift in power and belief. There is evidence of a large fire at the pyramid complex, suggesting a possible invasion or an internal revolt. The focus of worship may have moved away from Quetzalcoatl towards other deities, leading the people to simply seal the grand old temple and allow the elements to slowly reclaim it. It was not destroyed but retired, its spiritual power gently buried by time. The true wonder of Colula is not just its scale but its secret history. Excavations have revealed a series of tunnels that burrow deep into the pyramid's core, allowing us to walk through its timeline. Inside, you can see the layered shells of at least 6 different construction phases, each new generation building a larger temple over the last. Walking these passages is like traveling backward through time, witnessing the ambition of a civilization that continually renewed its connection to the divine by entombing its own past. This pyramid is a perfect symbol for pre-Columbian America itself, a place where history is not just written on the surface, but is layered, hidden, and waiting to be rediscovered under our very feet. Across the Mississippi River from modern St. Louis, a city of astonishing scale once thrived. This was Cahokia, the beating heart of the Mississippian culture, and at its peak around the year 1050, it was home to as many as 20,000 people, a population that rivaled London's at the very same time. This was not a scattered village, but a meticulously planned metropolis centered around a vast plaza, surrounded by over 120 flat-topped earthen mounds. The entire city was enclosed by a massive wooden stockade, a 2-mile-long wall that was rebuilt multiple times, suggesting a society both organized and under threat. Towering over everything was Monk's Mound, the largest prehistoric earthen structure in the Americas. This colossal platform mound rises 100 feet high and covers 14 acres at its base. To build it, workers moved over 55 million cubic feet of earth in woven baskets, a staggering communal effort that spanned generations. But what was the purpose of this man-made mountain? It was almost certainly the foundation for a massive temple or the residence of a powerful leader, a figure who literally and symbolically looked down upon the entire city. From that summit, a ruler could oversee a bustling world of artisans, traders, and farmers, a society connected by a network that stretched across half the continent. Cahokia was a hub with goods like copper from the Great Lakes, shells from the Gulf Coast, and mica from the Appalachians flowing through its markets. Yet by the year 1400, this great city was completely abandoned. The Grand Plaza lay empty and the wooden palisades slowly rotted away. So what happened to this North American powerhouse? The most likely explanation is a slow unraveling caused by a combination of environmental and social pressures. A growing city places immense strain on its surroundings. Trees were cut down for construction and fuel, leading to deforestation and increased flooding in the bottomlands where they grew their crops. Overhunting would have depleted local game. There is also evidence of a prolonged drought around the 13th century, which would have crippled the agricultural surplus needed to support such a dense population. These environmental stresses likely fueled social unrest. The very hierarchy that built Monk's Mound may have become its undoing. If the ruling class could no longer guarantee good harvests and stability, their authority would have crumbled. People may have simply voted with their feet, dispersing back into smaller, more sustainable communities across the river valleys. Why, then, did such a significant place fade so completely from memory? Unlike the Maya or the Inca, the Mississippian people left no written records. When European settlers arrived centuries later, they saw only overgrown mounds and assumed they were natural hills. The true story of the city had been lost, its name forgotten, its history waiting just beneath the surface for someone to ask the right questions. The silence of Cahokia is a powerful reminder that great civilizations rose and fell here long before any European eye ever witnessed them. The silence of Cahokia finds a startling parallel on the other side of the world, along the arid coast of northern Peru. Here, the Moch people built a civilization not of earth, but of sun-dried mud brick, creating monumental pyramids that still dominate the landscape. The Huaca del Sol and Huaca del Luna, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, were the twin hearts of a sophisticated society that flourished for over 600 years. These were not just massive structures, they were administrative and religious centers, bustling with priests, artisans, and rulers. The Moch were masters of their harsh environment. They engineered vast, intricate networks of canals to divert rivers from the Andes, turning barren desert into fertile fields that could support a dense population. Their skill extended deep into the earth, as they were among the finest metallurgists of the ancient Americas, crafting stunning objects of gold, silver, and copper with techniques like gilding and soldering that displayed a scientific understanding far ahead of its time. Their story is also told in their art, particularly their hyper-realistic ceramic vessels. These are not simple pots, they are portrait heads of individuals with every wrinkle and scar rendered in clay, and vessels depicting every aspect of life, from warfare and surgery to ritual and mythology, with a breathtaking clarity. And then, around 800 years after the Common Era began, their world fell apart. The Great Pyramids were abandoned, the intricate irrigation canals clogged with sand, and the vibrant artistic tradition ceased. What could topple such an accomplished and resilient society? The evidence points to a climatic cataclysm. Scientists studying ice cores from the Andes and sediment layers from the ocean floor have found the signature of a mega El Niño event, a dramatic warming of Pacific waters that would have triggered chaos for decades. For the Moche, this would have meant a nightmare of biblical proportions. First, the warming ocean would have killed the anchovies, a vital food source. Then, the weather patterns would have reversed completely. Instead of the reliable mist that watered their fields, the skies would have opened up, unleashing torrential rains and catastrophic flooding from the mountains. Their adobe brick pyramids, built for a dry climate, would have begun to melt back into the earth under the deluge. Canals and fields would have been scoured away by the raging waters. This would have been followed by the opposite extreme, a prolonged drought lasting for 30 years or more. The very irrigation systems that were their pride would have run dry. Their society, so perfectly adapted to a specific environmental rhythm, was utterly unprepared for this new, violent reality. Famine and disease would have spread. The authority of the priest-kings, who derived their power from ensuring agricultural abundance and maintaining order with the gods, would have evaporated in the face of such unending disaster. It was likely not a single event, but a cascade of failures. The social contract shattered, and the Moche people probably dispersed, their identity slowly merging with the new cultures like the Chimu that later rose in the same region. Their collapse is a stark lesson in fragility, a reminder that even the most brilliant human ingenuity can be overwhelmed by the sheer, unpredictable force of nature. What does it mean for a civilization to be perfectly adapted for a world that suddenly and violently ceases to exist? While the Moche struggled against a changing climate, a different kind of ocean voyage may have been unfolding on the vast Pacific. The Polynesians, the greatest navigators in human history, were undertaking journeys of staggering ambition across thousands of miles of open sea. Their double-hulled voyaging canoes, loaded with families, plants, and animals, were essentially floating islands, and their mastery of the stars, winds, and ocean swells allowed them to settle the most remote archipelagos on Earth. Their final frontier was Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, a speck of land that stands as one of the most isolated places on the planet. But what if their voyages did not stop there? A growing body of evidence suggests they may have sailed even further, reaching the coast of South America long before Columbus ever set sail. The most compelling clue is a humble vegetable, the sweet potato. This starchy tuber is undeniably a plant of American origin, domesticated in the Andes thousands of years ago. Yet, when European explorers first arrived in Polynesia, they found the sweet potato, known by names like kumara, already established as a staple crop on islands from Hawaii to New Zealand. For it to be there, someone had to have carried it across the ocean. The simplest explanation is that Polynesian voyagers reached South America, encountered this wonderful new food, and brought it back with them on their return journey, spreading it across the Pacific. This botanical mystery is supported by linguistic evidence. The word for sweet potato in several Polynesian languages, kumara, bears a striking resemblance to the word for the same plant in the Quechua language of the Andes, Cayumara. This is not a vague similarity, but a precise and specific shared term for a specific thing, strongly hinting at a direct cultural exchange. The evidence does not stop with words and plants. Recent genetic studies have added another layer to the puzzle. Analyses of modern-day populations on certain Polynesian islands have revealed a faint but distinct genetic signature, a trace of Native American DNA that appears to have been introduced around the year 1200, right around the time Polynesian expansion was at its peak. This suggests that contact was not a one-way street. Perhaps a Polynesian canoe returned with a few American passengers, or maybe a lost American raft was swept westward by currents and encountered a Polynesian island. The story of this possible contact is not about conquest or colonization, but about connection. Imagine a Polynesian voyaging canoe after weeks at sea, sighting the smudge of a new coastline. The meeting of these two worlds would have been a moment of awe and intense curiosity, an exchange of knowledge, technology, and food that left a permanent mark on the Pacific. Of course, not all scholars are convinced. The debate continues over whether the sweet potato could have floated across the ocean on its own, or if the contact was more indirect. Yet, the convergence of botanical, linguistic, and genetic clues paints a picture that is increasingly difficult to dismiss. It challenges the old, simplistic narrative of a world where civilizations developed in complete isolation. The potential voyage of the Polynesians to the Americas suggests a planet that was more interconnected in ancient times than we ever dared to believe. The allure of a perfect artifact can be almost irresistible. In the shadowy back rooms of museums and private collections, a series of objects emerged in the 19th century that seemed to defy all logic, carved from a single block of flawless, clear quartz crystal. These were the crystal skulls, objects of stunning clarity and impossible craftsmanship, often said to be ancient Mesoamerican relics from the Maya or Aztec. Legends swirled around them, claiming they held mystical powers, that they could reveal the future, heal the sick, or even communicate with otherworldly intelligences. Their surfaces were polished to a mirror finish, with not a single tool mark to be seen, as if they had been formed by some lost magical technology. The story was captivating, a tangible piece of a forgotten, advanced past, but was it true? The evidence, when examined under the cold, hard light of modern science, tells a very different story. Forensic analysis using high-powered microscopes revealed something the naked eye could not see. The crystal showed patterns of microscopic abrasion from modern, rotary wheels and industrial-grade abrasives, tools that simply did not exist in the pre-Columbian Americas. The skulls were not ancient at all, but clever and beautiful fakes, almost certainly carved in workshops in Germany and France during the 1800s, during a time of intense public fascination with the exotic mysteries of the ancient world. These objects were created to feed a booming market for antiquities, sold to wealthy collectors who craved a piece of the enigmatic past. So why does the myth of the crystal skulls persist with such tenacity? The answer lies in the power of a good story. They tapped into a deep human desire for mystery, for evidence that our ancestors possessed knowledge we have since lost. They became embedded in our popular culture, immortalized in films and books, blurring the line between documented archaeology and pure fantasy. The skulls themselves are not malicious, but they serve as a powerful cautionary tale. They remind us that sometimes the most seductive mysteries are not those left behind by ancient civilizations, but the ones we are all too willing to create for ourselves. What does our enduring fascination with these fakes reveal about what we truly hope to find in the past? The mystery of the crystal skulls shows how easily fantasy can overshadow fact, but the true wonder lies in the real, tangible cities we are still struggling to explain. Northeast of modern Mexico City, the ruins of Teotihuacan rise from the valley floor, a metropolis so vast and orderly it feels like it was designed by giants. Its two colossal pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, anchor a grand thoroughfare known as the Avenue of the Dead, a layout that speaks of immense centralized power. Yet the most profound mystery of this place is not in its stones, but in the silence that surrounds them. We do not know who built this city. We do not know what they called themselves or what language they spoke. The name we use for it, Teotihuacan, was given centuries later by the Aztecs, who stumbled upon the magnificent, abandoned ruins and believed it was the place where the gods were created. The scale of this urban achievement is staggering. At its peak around 450 of the Common Era, It was one of the largest cities in the entire world, housing perhaps 125,000 people. Its architects demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of urban planning, with thousands of residential compounds arranged in a grid pattern, distinct neighborhoods for different social classes, and even districts that appear to have been dedicated to foreign merchants. This is where the clues to their identity become so tantalizing. Archaeological evidence reveals a truly cosmopolitan center. There were enclaves for people from Oaxaca, likely Zapotecs, and others from the Maya regions to the south. Teotihuacan was not a city of a single people, but a melting pot, a primordial New York or Shanghai that drew in diverse groups from across Mesoamerica. This very diversity may have been the source of its ultimate downfall. Around the year 550, something terrible happened. Evidence points not to an outside invasion, but to a cataclysm from within. In the city's ceremonial core, along the Avenue of the Dead, statues of the ruling elite were systematically torn down and smashed. The most opulent temples and palaces were set ablaze in a furious, concentrated wave of destruction. This was not random violence. It had the hallmarks of a calculated, brutal revolt. Did the ruling class grow too distant from the multi-ethnic populace they governed? Did economic strain or a prolonged drought fracture the social order, pitting neighborhood against neighborhood? The city never truly recovered. The power structure was shattered and the population dwindled, leaving the grand avenues and pyramids to the elements. The Aztec name they bestowed upon the ruins echoes through the centuries, the place where the gods were created. It is a name born of awe, a testament to the sheer majesty that overwhelmed those who came later. They could not conceive that mere humans had built such a place, but the real builders were human, a complex society of engineers, artists, and traders whose name and story are lost to us. Their greatest monument is a city that asks us a haunting question. How can a place so immense, so carefully planned, become so utterly anonymous? The silence of Teotihuacan is a different kind of mystery, one not of a lost object, but of a lost world. High on a misty Andean mountainside, the stones of Sacsayhuamán fit together like a puzzle carved by gods. These are not simple stacked blocks. They are massive, irregular polygons of granite, some weighing over 100 tons, yet they join with a precision that defies belief. You cannot force a razor blade or even a single piece of paper into the seams between them. This is the signature achievement of Inca stonemasonry, a technology so advanced it appears almost supernatural, and its secrets died with the empire. How do you achieve such perfection with nothing more than stone, bronze, and human muscle? The most widely accepted theory involves a staggering amount of patience and percussive force. Workers likely used harder stones to pound the granite into a rough shape. Then they might have employed a technique of trial and error, lifting a stone, grinding it against its neighbor with sand and water as an abrasive, then lowering it to check the fit. This process of fine-tuning, repeated over and over, would have slowly carved a negative impression of one stone onto the other, creating that legendary seamless joint. The amount of labor involved is almost unimaginable, a testament to the Incas' absolute control over their society and their unwavering dedication to building for eternity. But could there have been more to their method? A persistent legend speaks of a plant, a mysterious juice that could somehow soften the hard stone, allowing artisans to mold it like clay. While no archaeological evidence supports this, the theory endures because the finished product seems to demand an explanation beyond brute force. How else could they have created those famous 12-angled stones in Cusco, blocks that interlock with a dozen different neighbors in a perfect jigsaw-like fit? The mystery only deepens when we consider transport. These colossal stones were quarried from sites miles away, then dragged up and down precipitous mountain slopes. Without the wheel or draft animals, this was a symphony of logistics. They likely used earthen ramps, log rollers, and the raw power of thousands of men pulling on ropes. The sound must have been deafening, a chorus of grinding stone and coordinated human effort echoing through the valleys. The Spanish conquest in the 16th century shattered this world. The master masons, the engineers who held this specialized knowledge, were killed or dispersed by disease and war. The continuous thread of apprenticeship was severed forever. The conquistadors, who prized gold and silver, had little interest in the quiet genius of stonework. They built their own churches on top of the Inca foundations, a perfect metaphor for their actions. They appropriated the strength of the past without ever understanding the mind that created it. So we are left with these silent, magnificent walls. They stand as the ultimate expression of a lost technology, a puzzle that modern engineers still struggle to replicate. The stones themselves hold the answer, but they refuse to speak. They simply are, a permanent question etched in granite. For centuries, the Amazon was seen as a vast, untouched wilderness, a green desert incapable of supporting anything more than small, nomadic tribes. This long-held belief is now crumbling. The jungle was not a pristine paradise, but a managed landscape, home to sprawling, complex societies that transformed the very earth beneath their feet. Recent technological leaps are tearing back the canopy to reveal the truth. Archaeologists are now using LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, a laser scanning technology fired from aircraft. These lasers penetrate the dense vegetation to map the ground below, and the images they return are rewriting history. Instead of an empty green expanse, the scans show an intricate web of straight causeways connecting large settlements, geometric patterns of mounds and moats, and evidence of sophisticated urban planning on a scale no one thought possible. This was not a wilderness, but a networked world. The most profound evidence, however, lies in the soil itself. Scattered throughout the Amazon are patches of terra preta, or Amazonian dark earth. This is not a natural soil. It is a man-made super soil, incredibly rich in nutrients like charcoal, bone, and manure, a testament to ancient Amazonians who engineered their environment for long-term fertility. This dark earth is so productive that local farmers still seek it out today, centuries after it was created. Its existence proves these were not small bands of hunter-gatherers, but large, sedentary populations practicing a form of intensive agriculture that sustained them for generations. They were not simply living in the jungle, they were cultivating it, shaping it into a productive garden. They likely planted groves of fruit and nut trees, creating food forests that still persist today, and managed the soil with a wisdom we are only beginning to comprehend. This changes everything we thought we knew about the Amazon. It suggests a pre-Columbian world far more populated and organized, a civilization that flourished by working with the jungle's complexity rather than fighting against it. The real mystery is no longer whether these societies existed, but how they achieved such a delicate, sustainable balance with one of the most complex ecosystems on Earth, and what we might learn from their forgotten wisdom. While the Aztecs forged an empire through conquest, their ambition met an immovable wall in the west. The Purepecha, known to history as the Tarascans, commanded a powerful domain that the Aztec armies could never break. This was not just another rival city-state, but a fully independent civilization with its own gods, its own language, and its own vision of power. Their capital, Tzintzuntzan, meaning the place of the hummingbirds, was built on the shores of Lake Pátzcuaro, a city of step pyramids with unique circular bases called yacatas. The Tarascans were masters of a material that gave them a distinct military edge: copper. While their Aztec rivals relied on obsidian for their weapons, the Tarascan Empire ran on a copper economy. They mass-produced tools, ornaments, and the sharp points of their weapons in state-controlled workshops, creating an industrial base that was unmatched in the region. This technological advantage was crucial in their long-running conflict with the Aztecs. Time and again, Aztec emperors sent vast armies to subdue the West, and time and again they were decisively repelled. In one of the largest battles, the Tarascans not only defeated the invading force but captured and sacrificed thousands of Aztec soldiers, leaving their flayed skins on display as a grim warning. The border between the two empires solidified into a heavily fortified no-man's land, a permanent scar of their rivalry. The mystery of the Tarascans begins with their very origin. Their language is an isolated tongue, unrelated to Nahuatl spoken by the Aztecs or any other language in the region. This suggests they may have been relative newcomers to the area, perhaps migrants from further south who carved out their own kingdom and fiercely maintained their cultural separateness. Their pantheon was dominated by a central creator god, Curicaury, a deity of fire and war served by a powerful priesthood. They even had their own unique calendar and writing system, though few of their records survived the later conquest. This brings us to their final and most puzzling act. When Spanish forces under the command of Cristobal de Olid arrived at the edges of the Tarascan Empire in 1522, they were braced for another grueling war. Instead, the Tarascan ruler, known as the Kazansai, submitted to Spanish authority almost immediately. There was no epic siege, no last stand. Why would a kingdom that had so fiercely defended its independence for generations surrender without a major fight? The answer may lie in a perfect storm of political and psychological warfare. The Spanish arrived not long after a devastating smallpox epidemic had swept through the region, a plague that would have crippled the Tarascan capacity to resist. The Kazansai, a young and likely insecure leader, may have been facing internal dissent. Most importantly, the Spanish were accompanied by thousands of native allies, many of them subjects of the Aztecs. For the Tarascans, the sight of their ancient enemies fighting alongside these pale, bearded newcomers must have been a terrifying and disorienting spectacle. The Spanish skillfully exploited this, likely presenting themselves as a tool for the Tarascans to finally achieve dominance over their hated Aztec rivals. By submitting, the Kazansai may have believed he was making a pragmatic alliance, not a total surrender. This single decision had catastrophic consequences for the entire continent. The Tarascan surrender provided the Spanish with a secure base, vast resources, and crucial intelligence about the Aztec heartland. It meant that when Hernán Cortés marched on Tenochtitlan, he did not have to fight a war on two fronts. The Aztecs, trapped and isolated, never stood a chance. The story of the Tarascans is a haunting what-if of history. What if they had chosen to fight? The course of the conquest and the entire cultural landscape of Mexico might look very different today. Their legacy is a reminder that history is shaped not only by battles won, but by the profound and often inexplicable choices made in moments of crisis. Perched on a remote Andean ridge shrouded in perpetual mist, the stone walls of Culap rise like a forgotten fortress. This was the domain of the Chachapoya, a people so enigmatic they are known to history only as the warriors of the clouds. Their city, Culap, is a marvel of engineering, a sprawling complex protected by walls that soar 60 feet high, a stone bulwark encircling over 400 circular houses. Their architecture was their signature, these distinctive round structures with intricate zigzag and rhomboid patterns carved into the stone, a style utterly unique in the Andes. Living in this cloud forest realm, they developed a culture as independent and resilient as the landscape itself, a society that would become legendary for its defiance. Their greatest challenge arrived in the form of the expanding Inca Empire. While many cultures succumbed to the Incas' overwhelming military might, the Chachapoya fought a long and bitter war of resistance. They used their mountainous terrain to their advantage, forcing the Inca to lay a grueling siege to Culap that reportedly lasted for years. Even after their eventual defeat, their spirit was not broken. They revolted repeatedly against their Inca overlords, a testament to a fierce desire for autonomy that defined their very identity. This defiance only deepens the central mystery that surrounds them. Where did the Cloud Warriors come from? their physical appearance described by Inca chroniclers as tall and fair-skinned, and their unique artistic style have fueled speculation for centuries. Some have suggested ancient voyages across the Atlantic, but mainstream archaeology points to a long, independent development right there in the Andes. Their origins remain a puzzle, their story one they fiercely guarded. Their final fate is equally shrouded. When the Spanish arrived, the Chachapoya, already chafing under Inca rule, saw an opportunity. Many allied with the conquistadors, hoping to secure their freedom, only to be devastated by the European diseases and political upheaval that followed. Their population collapsed and their culture was scattered, their secrets taken with them. Those secrets are still out there, hidden in the most dramatic of places. The Chachapoya did not bury their dead in the ground. They built solemn, human-shaped sarcophagi called Puran machas and placed them in sheer cliff faces overlooking their ancestral lands. They carved elaborate mausoleums into the limestone rock, their honored dead watching over the world from impossible heights. These silent sentinels have protected their charges for centuries, their contents offering glimpses into a lost world. What final truths do these cliffside tombs hold about the proud, mysterious people who dared to call the clouds their home? Fire was the weapon that erased a civilization's memory. When Spanish friars like Diego de Landa gathered the painted books of the Maya and set them ablaze in the 1660s, they were not just destroying objects, they were annihilating a worldview. These were not simple scrolls, they were codices, long strips of fig bark paper folded like a screen, coated with a fine layer of plaster and illustrated in brilliant mineral-based colors. Each one was a library, a repository of astronomy, history, medicine, and prophecy. The scale of this loss is almost beyond comprehension. Historians estimate that thousands of these books were systematically burned, leaving only a precious handful that survived the flames, often by sheer chance, hidden away or taken to Europe as curiosities before the worst of the destruction began. Among these rare survivors is the Dresden Codex, a masterpiece of Maya science. Its pages are filled with intricate tables tracking the cycles of Venus, predicting solar eclipses, and detailing complex rituals tied to the passage of time. This was not superstition, it was a highly sophisticated mathematical astronomy, allowing priests to calculate celestial events with astonishing accuracy centuries into the future. Then there is the Florentine Codex, a work of a different kind, born from the ashes of the Old World. It was compiled under the direction of the Spanish friar Bernardino de Sahagun, who enlisted the help of Nahua elders and scribes. This monumental 12-volume work is an encyclopedia of Aztec life, a desperate attempt to record a culture that was disappearing before their eyes. Its pages describe everything from the gods and philosophy to the names of herbs, the techniques for making chocolate, and the speeches given to children by their parents. It is a bittersweet treasure, a profound record filtered through the lens of conquest and survival. So what exactly went up in those pyres? We lost the complete histories of dynasties, the names of kings and queens whose deeds would have rivaled those of ancient Egypt. We lost entire systems of knowledge, medicinal recipes using plants whose properties are still unknown to science, and philosophical texts that could have offered a completely different perspective on the human experience. The void this created is permanent. We can piece together fragments from stone inscriptions and the accounts of the conquerors, but the living voice of those civilizations, written in their own hand, is gone forever. The charred fragments of those codices represent one of history's greatest intellectual tragedies, a library of human thought set ablaze, leaving us to forever wonder what wisdom was lost to the fire. Etched into the sun-baked sandstone of the American Southwest, thousands of spiral petroglyphs turn the desert into a vast, open-air gallery. Created by the ancestral Puebloans centuries ago, these intricate carvings are more than just ancient art, they are a silent language we are still learning to decipher. Each spiral, meticulously pecked into the rock face, holds a potential meaning that has sparked decades of debate among archaeologists. Were these symbols maps guiding people to water sources or sacred sites across the treacherous landscape? Could they have served as markers for specific clans, a family's signature written in stone for all to see? Or do they represent something far more profound, a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos itself? The most compelling clue to this mystery is found in the heart of Choco Canyon, at a place called Fajoda Butte. Here, high upon the butte's face, 3 large stone slabs lean against the cliff. Behind them, a spiral petroglyph is carved into the rock. For most of the year, it is a beautiful but static symbol. Then, at the precise moment of the summer solstice, a sliver of sunlight, a perfect dagger of light, slices between the slabs and pierces the very center of the spiral. As the sun moves, the light dagger travels, tracing the outer coil of the spiral during the winter solstice and perfectly bisecting it during the equinoxes. This was no accidental alignment. The ancestral Puebloans engineered this celestial calendar with breathtaking precision, using the sun itself as a pointer to mark the turning of the seasons. This sun dagger proves they possessed advanced calendrical knowledge, allowing them to predict the solstices and equinoxes with absolute accuracy. This knowledge was essential for survival, dictating the timing of planting and harvest in an unforgiving environment, and for ceremony, connecting their spiritual life to the fundamental rhythms of the universe. The spirals, then, were not just pictures, they were cosmic clocks, observatories built into the living rock. They transformed the abstract passage of time into a visible, dramatic event of light and shadow. This revelation forces us to look at every spiral across the Southwest with new eyes. If one spiral functions as a precise solar marker, could others be tracking the cycles of the moon or the wanderings of planets? The silent desert holds more than just the memory of a people. It contains a complex astronomical text written in stone and light, waiting for the right moment to reveal its secrets. Deep in the isolated peaks of Colombia's Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, an entire civilization built its world from stone. The Tairona were master engineers, carving terraces and plazas into the steep mountainsides and constructing a network of stone-paved paths that connected their towns across the treacherous terrain. Their greatest achievement was a city known today as Ciudad Perdida, the Lost City, a sprawling complex of over 200 terraces that housed perhaps 2,000 people. To the Spanish conquistadors who heard whispers of its wealth, this mountain stronghold became the source of the El Dorado legend, a place of unimaginable gold. Yet the true treasure of the Tairona was not the metal they worked with such skill, but the profound harmony they achieved with their environment. They designed their cities with intricate drainage systems and retention walls to manage the torrential rains, building not to conquer the mountain but to become a part of it. This delicate balance allowed them to thrive for centuries. Then, in the 16th century, they made a momentous choice. Faced with the relentless advance of Spanish expeditions, the Tairona did not fight to the last man. They simply vanished, abandoning their magnificent stone cities and retreating deeper into the inaccessible heights of the Sierra Nevada. They left behind a silent stone puzzle for the jungle to reclaim. But they did not disappear. Their descendants, the Kogi people, are still there today, living in the highest reaches of the mountains, having preserved their traditions in near total isolation for over 500 years. The Kogi see themselves as the elder brothers, the guardians of the heart of the world. They believe they were left behind with a sacred duty to maintain the spiritual balance of the planet through ritual and thought. From their secluded villages, their spiritual leaders, the Mamos, undergo a rigorous training from childhood, learning to listen to the natural world. They issue stark warnings to the younger brothers, which is all of us in the modern world, that our relentless extraction and consumption is pushing the earth toward sickness and collapse. For them, the lost city of gold was never a place to be plundered. It was a symbol of a different kind of wealth, a wisdom that understood humanity's place within a living, breathing universe. The silent stones of Ciudad Perdida ask us a difficult question. What have we, the younger brothers, forgotten in our rush to conquer the world? A skeleton emerged from the muddy banks of the Columbia River in 1996, a discovery that would ignite a firestorm spanning science, law, and the human spirit. Known as the Kennewick Man, these 9,000-year-old bones were immediately puzzling. His cranial structure seemed different from that of modern Native American populations, with features some scientists described as more European. This single observation fueled sensational theories. Was he proof of an early, failed migration from Europe, a lost group of explorers who walked this land long before Columbus? The possibility threatened to rewrite the entire narrative of how the Americas were first peopled. But for Native American tribes of the region, including the Umatilla, there was no mystery. Their oral histories had always spoken of their deep time presence on this land. To them, this was not a specimen, but an ancestor, a person who needed to be returned to the earth with the proper respect and ceremony. What followed was a bitter, decade-long legal battle. A group of scientists sued the United States government for the right to study the remains, arguing their immense value to human history. The tribes fought for their right to rebury the Ancient One, as they called him, under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. The case raised profound questions. Who owns the past? Does scientific inquiry outweigh spiritual belief? For years, the skeleton sat in a museum vault, a silent center of a modern cultural war. The breakthrough came from a technology that did not exist when he was first found: advanced DNA sequencing. When scientists finally extracted and analyzed his genetic material, the results were unequivocal. The Kennewick Man was, without doubt, most closely related to contemporary Native Americans, specifically to members of the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation. The European theory collapsed. His distinctive physical features were simply part of the rich, early diversity of the first peoples, a diversity that has smoothed over millennia. The DNA resolved the scientific debate, but it did not erase the pain of the conflict. His story is a powerful lesson in the ethics of discovery. It forces us to ask, at what cost does knowledge come? The remains were finally repatriated and laid to rest in early 2017, a closure that was both a victory and a sobering reminder that every ancient bone was once a person, connected to a living community. High on a mountain terrace in the valley of Oaxaca, the Zapotec people carved their story into stone. Their civilization, one of the very first in Mesoamerica, flourished for over 1,000 years, and their greatest city, Monte Albán, became a powerhouse whose influence stretched across the region. They were innovators, constructing grand plazas and intricate tombs, but their most enduring legacy is also their most mysterious, a hieroglyphic writing system that predates even the Maya. Etched onto stone monuments and painted on the walls of tombs, these glyphs are a locked door to an entire world of thought. We can recognize some symbols, like the glyph for mountain or the day signs from their calendar, but the full language, the grammar, and the sentences remain stubbornly undeciphered. This is not like the Maya script, which scholars have painstakingly unlocked over decades. The Zapotec code presents a far greater challenge. The primary obstacle is the scarcity of material. Only a few hundred texts have survived, most of them short inscriptions on stone slabs. Unlike the Maya, who left behind long, folded book codices, the Zapotec may have written their more detailed histories on perishable materials like deerskin or bark paper, all of which have long since turned to dust. Without a longer text, a Rosetta Stone with a known language, the patterns of their speech are incredibly difficult to reconstruct. Each glyph is a puzzle piece without the picture on the box to guide us. So what secrets are trapped within these silent symbols? Cracking this code would do more than just give us a list of kingly names. It would rip the veil from the political structure of Monte Albán, revealing the intricate alliances and rivalries between its ruling families. We could finally understand their religious beliefs in their own words, learning not just who their gods were, but the myths and prayers that defined their universe. It could tell us about the legal disputes, the trade agreements, the very conversations that echoed through their marketplaces. The glyphs are not just art, they are the living voice of a foundational American culture, a voice we can see but cannot yet hear. Every undeciphered line is a lost chapter in the human story, a constant reminder of how much history still waits silently for its key. The Aztecs spoke of a golden age, a time before their own when a race of master artists and wise rulers walked the earth. They called these legendary people the Toltecs, describing them as the founders of all civilization, the inventors of writing, medicine, and the calendar. To the Aztec mind, calling something Toltec was the highest possible praise, meaning it was crafted with supreme skill and wisdom. But were these legendary figures a real, lost empire, or were they something else entirely, a powerful myth conjured to justify a new world order? This question lies at the heart of one of Mesoamerica's most enduring historical puzzles. The search for a real Toltec capital leads us to the archaeological site of Cholula in the Mexican state of Hidalgo. Here we find the ruins of a once great city with a grand plaza, a pyramid dedicated to the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl, and the iconic Atlantean figures, massive stone warriors that seem to hold up the sky. The architecture and art at Cholula show clear stylistic links to the great city of Chichen Itza far to the east, suggesting a cultural connection, perhaps even an empire with far-reaching influence. For many decades, this was taken as proof that the legends were true, that Cholula was the fabled Tolan, the capital of the historical Toltec Empire. Yet, the evidence at Cholula is not as grand as the legends would suggest. The city, while impressive, is not on the same colossal scale as Teotihuacan, which had been abandoned centuries earlier. The timeline is also difficult to reconcile perfectly. This has led many scholars to propose a more complex and fascinating idea, that the Aztecs were not simply recording history, but actively creating a foundational myth. By glorifying the Toltecs as the ultimate civilized predecessors, the Aztec rulers could position themselves as the legitimate heirs to this glorious legacy. It was a powerful political tool, a way to sanctify their own power and justify their rapidly expanding empire. They were building their own identity on the shoulders of giants, whether those giants were entirely real or not. So, does this mean the Toltecs were a complete fiction? Not necessarily. It is likely that there was a powerful culture centered at Cholula, a people who did indeed influence a wide region. But their story was then magnified, idealized, and woven into a grand narrative by the Aztecs, blurring the line between a real society and a mythological archetype. The Toltecs stand as a profound reminder that history is not always a simple record of facts. Sometimes the past is a story we tell ourselves about who we are and where we come from, a tale where the threads of truth and legend are so tightly woven they can never be fully pulled apart. The earth itself was their sacred text, molded into forms that have endured for centuries. Across the eastern woodlands of North America, a succession of cultures we call the mound builders raised thousands of earthen structures, from simple burial cones to vast geometric enclosures. These were not random piles of dirt, but profound expressions of a complex worldview, built basketful by basketful over generations. The most breathtaking of all is the Great Serpent Mound, a sinuous earthwork coiled across a plateau in Ohio. Stretching for over 1,300 feet, it is the largest serpent effigy in the world. From above, the serpent's undulating body, its tightly coiled tail, and its gaping jaw that seems to be swallowing a giant oval egg create an image of immense power and motion frozen in soil. Who built this colossal symbol, and what urgent message were they trying to send across the centuries? The creation of the Serpent Mound is attributed to two remarkable cultures. The Adena people, who began the tradition of mound building around 1,000 years before the Common Era, likely started the effigy. Later, the Hopewell culture, known for their far-flung trade networks and exquisite artistry, may have expanded or refurbished it. These were not isolated tribes, but sophisticated societies with a deep understanding of engineering and the cosmos. This leads us directly to the central debate surrounding the mound's purpose. Was it a giant astronomical observatory? The serpent's alignments are uncanny. The head and the egg-shaped oval align directly with the sunset on the summer solstice, while the coils of its body may point to the solstice sunrises and the equinoxes. For a farming society, tracking the sun's journey was a matter of survival, and this giant serpent could have served as a celestial calendar, marking the crucial turning points of the year. Yet, its purpose may run even deeper than marking time. Many Native American traditions see the serpent not as a creature of evil, but as a powerful spirit of the underworld, intimately connected to water, fertility, and the very cycle of life and death. The oval object in its mouth might not be an egg, but a symbol of the sun, the moon, or perhaps the cosmic void. In this view, the serpent mound was a place of potent ceremony, a location where the physical and spiritual worlds met, where rituals could influence the forces of nature and ensure the world's continued balance. So, was it a clock, a church, or both? The most compelling answer is that these purposes were inseparable. For the Adena and Hopewell, the cycles of the sky were a divine script, and the serpent was a key actor in that cosmic drama. By building this effigy, they were not just observing the universe, they were actively participating in it, aligning their community with the fundamental rhythms of creation. The Great Serpent Mound does not offer a single, simple answer. It lies silently on the land, a question mark written in earth, reminding us that the most enduring mysteries are those that speak simultaneously to the mind, the spirit, and the soil. These tiny gold objects from ancient Colombia seem to defy their own time. Crafted by the Quimbaya culture around 1,000 years of the Common Era, these intricate figurines are small enough to hold in your hand, yet they have sparked one of the most persistent debates in archaeology. Their shapes are startlingly familiar, featuring what look like delta wings, vertical stabilizers, and streamlined fuselages. To the modern eye, they are unmistakably miniature airplanes. This uncanny resemblance has fueled sensational claims of ancient advanced technology or even contact with visitors from other worlds. Could these artifacts be proof that a forgotten civilization mastered flight? The theory is undeniably captivating, suggesting a history far more complex than we ever learned. Yet mainstream archaeology offers a different, more grounded explanation. Scholars point out that the Quimbaya were master goldsmiths who produced thousands of zoomorphic figures, stylized representations of the animals that shared their world. When you place these so-called airplanes next to Quimbaya figurines of birds, fish, and insects, the resemblance becomes less clear. What looks like a fighter jet's cockpit could be the rounded body of a bird. The iconic delta wings might be the stylized wings of a bat or a stingray, creatures the Quimbaya would have known intimately. The artists were not aiming for photographic realism, but for capturing the essence of a creature's form, often exaggerating key features for symbolic or decorative effect. So why does the airplane theory persist with such strength? It speaks to a deep human desire to find glimpses of our own world in the distant past, to see our technology reflected in ancient artistry. It is a classic example of what is called an out-of-place artifact, an object that seems too advanced or too anomalous for its time, challenging our linear understanding of progress. The real mystery of the Quimbaya figurines may not be about ancient aerodynamics, but about our own perception. How much does our modern perspective shape what we see in these ancient objects? Are we looking at a literal representation of technology, or are we seeing the boundless creativity of human artists who, like us, were inspired by the forms of the natural world? These small gold treasures hold a dual power, reminding us that the past is always filtered through the lens of the present. The true genius of the Aztecs was not just in their pyramids, but in their ability to feed a metropolis built on a lake. In the swampy waters of Lake Texcoco, they engineered one of the most productive agricultural systems in history, the Chinampas. Often called floating gardens, these were not actually floating, but artificial islands constructed with incredible precision. Workers would weave huge rectangular frames from reeds and stakes, then layer them with rich mud scooped from the lake bottom and decaying aquatic vegetation. This created a nutrient-dense, constantly moist growing medium that was essentially self-fertilizing. Willow trees were planted at the corners of each plot, their roots anchoring the Chinampa firmly to the lakebed and preventing erosion. The result was a sprawling grid of fertile islands, separated by canals that served as waterways for canoes and as a source of irrigation. This system was so efficient that farmers could harvest up to 7 different crops in a single year, from maize and beans to vibrant flowers, supporting a population in Tenochtitlan that may have reached 200,000 people at its peak. It was a perfect closed-loop ecosystem that turned a seemingly uninhabitable marsh into the breadbasket of an empire. This incredible sustainability makes their disappearance after the Spanish conquest so puzzling. If the Chinampas were so effective, why were they largely abandoned and forgotten? The answer lies in the brutal dismantling of the Aztec world. The Spanish were land-based farmers with a deep-seated distrust of swampy terrain. They saw the lake not as a resource, but as a problem to be solved, an unhealthy miasma they wanted to drain. Their entire agricultural model was based on wheat, cattle, and plows, technologies utterly incompatible with the delicate Chinampa system. More devastatingly, the social structure that built and maintained the Chinampas was shattered. The organized labor and specialized knowledge required to manage the canals and replenish the soils were lost as the population was decimated by disease and forced into new European-style labor systems. The conquistadors were focused on extracting gold and silver, not on preserving a sophisticated horticultural science they failed to understand. The Chinampas did not disappear because they were inefficient, but because the culture that perfected them was systematically erased. Their story is a haunting lesson in how easily a sustainable technology can vanish when the society that nurtured it is torn apart. What other ancient wisdom have we lost simply because we stopped listening to the people who held it? Stretching for more than 24,000 miles, the Inca road system was a web of stone and ambition that conquered the Andes. Known as the Q-Hapac-Ñan, or the Royal Road, it connected ocean shores to cloud forests, threading through some of the most treacherous mountains on Earth. We know it moved armies with stunning speed and relayed messages carried by runners who could cover 150 miles in a single day. But the true purpose of this network ran far deeper than logistics or military might. It was the sacred skeleton of the entire empire, a physical expression of their belief that the human, natural, and divine worlds were inextricably linked. The roads were not laid down arbitrarily. Many of the longest, straightest segments align precisely with the path of the sun during solstices, or with significant celestial bodies. Walking these paths was, in a very real sense, a way of walking with the cosmos, of physically tracing the lines of power that the Inca believed governed the universe. This celestial alignment guided travelers to the empire's most sacred places, the huacas. These were not always grand temples, but often natural features: a unique spring, a strangely shaped rock, a mountain peak, believed to be infused with spiritual energy. The road system connected these points of power, turning a simple journey into a profound pilgrimage. The ultimate destination for many was the Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun in the capital of Cusco, which itself was considered the symbolic center of the world. This transformed the entire empire from a collection of conquered territories into a single, consecrated landscape. Every step a messenger, soldier, or pilgrim took reinforced their place within a divine order. The road was a constant, tangible reminder that the Sopa Inca, the emperor, was the son of the sun, and his power literally paved the way through the world. How does a civilization hold together an empire of such impossible geography? It builds a road that is more than a road, a path that binds land, sky, and spirit into one unbreakable whole. This journey through pre-Columbian America reveals a world of staggering complexity and profound mystery. We have stood in the silent plazas of the Maya, traced the sprawling Nazca Lines from the air, and marveled at stones fitted so perfectly they seem the work of magic. We have seen civilizations rise to breathtaking heights, only to be tested by climate, conflict, and the relentless passage of time. These are not just academic puzzles. Every abandoned city, every enigmatic artifact, is a chapter in the grand story of human ingenuity and resilience. They teach us that history is not a single, linear path, but a rich tapestry of cultures that independently achieved wonders, from sustainable agriculture to celestial astronomy. Their stories challenge our assumptions and expand our understanding of what is possible. The legacy of these cultures is all around us, hidden in the earth, encoded in stone, and carried in the traditions of their descendants. The greatest secret of pre-Columbian America is the sheer scale of its forgotten brilliance, a truth that forever reshapes our view of the human past. So tell us, which of these ancient mysteries captured your imagination the most? Let us know in the comments below, and subscribe to join us on our next deep dive into history's greatest enigmas.